I wanted to talk to you about the Dictator's Handbook, as it were, the how dictators try to disrupt societies. And there's a clip that's been floating around the internet forever. It goes back to an interview show years ago, and I was trying to find the original clip of it, and it's living over on YouTube, and it's a fairly long piece. But a shorter version of it is on Twitter. In fact, I retweeted it this morning, or last night, I guess I retweeted it. And it's a former KGB officer, a former Russian intelligence officer, explaining how to disrupt a democratic society, a democracy. And are we all set to play the audio on this thing? Okay, here it goes. This is.
You spoke several times before about ideological subversion. That is a phrase that I'm afraid some Americans don't fully understand.
There's nothing to do with espionage. Only about 15% of time, money, and manpower is spent on espionage as such. The other 85% is a slow process, which we call either ideological subversion or active measures, активные мероприятия in the language of the KGB, or psychological warfare. What it basically means is to change the perception of reality of every American to such an extent that despite of the abundance of information, no one is able to come to sensible conclusions in the interests of defending themselves, their families, their community, and their country. You cannot change their mind, even if you expose them to authentic information, even if you prove that white is white and black is black, you still cannot change the basic perception and the logic of behavior. In other words, these people, the process of demoralization is complete and irreversible. To get rid society of these people, you need another 20 or 15 years to educate a new generation of patriotically minded and common sense people who would be acting in favor and in the interests of the United States society. The next stage is destabilization. This time, subverter does not care about your ideas and the patterns of your consumption. Whether you eat junk food and get fat and flabby, it doesn't matter anymore. This time, and it takes only from 2 to 5 years to destabilize a nation, what matters is essentials: economy, foreign relations, defense systems. The next stage, of course, is crisis. It may take only up to 6 weeks to bring a country to the verge of crisis. You can see it in Central America now. And after crisis, with a violent change of power, structure, and economy, you have so-called the period of normalization. It may last indefinitely.
And normalization, of course, is flipping the country from democracy to autocracy. So last night, Tucker Carlson went on a rant on Fox News. And tell me if I'm misunderstanding this. Maybe I don't. Maybe I'm confused here. But it seems to me like what he said last night is exactly what this guy is talking about. Created alternative reality, push people into it in a way that makes them, not absolutely ends their trust in their own government and in their own country, basically turns them into Russian agents or something like that, the agents of autocracy. It's not just Russia that does this to us. And this is what he said. He started out by going on this rant about how Democrats are, quote, decriminalizing serious crimes, end quote. We had a fellow who called into Mark Pocan yesterday and basically echoed the exact same thing. Tucker Carlson says, oh, yeah, the Biden administration is even including free crack pipes in their safe smoking kits, right? This kind of stuff. And then he goes on to say that that's proof that the Democrats don't care about public health and that their rule is illegitimate. This is exactly what he said. He said, quote, he's speaking of Democrats, but they're not worried about the public health at all. What they're worried about is public resistance to their policies. Disarming the population ends that resistance. Now think about that for a minute. We live in a democracy where you resist policies by voting out the bums, not by shooting the bums. But here's a television commentator saying that by taking away people's guns, you are ending their ability to resist political positions. You know, the assumption that underlies that is breathtaking. He continues. He says they're very concerned, speaking of Democrats, they're very concerned because they know they rule illegitimately, that the population will rise up. That probably, and now Tucker Carlson is talking right to his audience, that probably has not occurred to you. It's definitely occurred to them. This is the destruction of democracy and replacing it with violent autocracy. You've got, you know, Ron DeSantis creating his own private police force down in Florida. You got Republican politicians all across the country using guns in their Christmas cards and their TV ads. You've got, you know, white racists and white supremacists killing people all across the country, committing the majority of murders over the last 20 years or so. And they're claiming that the Democrats are the ones trying to harm this country? Democrats are trying to put America back together after 40 years of destruction by Reaganomics and all this bizarre ideology. What say you? I'll pick up your calls.